One wrong export decision can cost you lakhs. Most exporters choose the wrong country first. Without data, you are just another person with an opinion. And opinions are guesswork. Export data gives you clarity. It shows you which product works in which country. So you can take decisions with confidence. Not guesswork. So you know what to export. And where to export. This is the India Export Dashboard. In this video, we're focusing on spices. Before zooming in, this dashboard gives us the big picture of India's exports. And within that picture, it shows how spices are actually performing. Let's start with the key indicators for the latest financial year. India's total exports stand at 3.6 trillion rupees. Exports are growing at around 15% year-on-year, which tells us that overall trade momentum is strong. At the same time, exports are still concentrated, with mineral fuels leading the basket. And this category alone accounts for about 22% of total exports. This view helps us quickly compare winners and laggards in India's exports. At the top are commodities with large export values and strong growth. These are currently driving India's export performance. At the bottom are commodities with weak volumes or declining growth, signaling sectors where exporters need to be more cautious. This comparison helps us see not just what is big but what is actually growing. Now let's look at the long-term trend for spices export. Over the years, spices exports have gone through ups and downs, but the overall direction has remained upward. This consistency tells us that spices are not a short-term opportunity, but a relatively stable export category over time. Now let's look at which countries are importing Indian spices. These are the key destination markets that currently drive spices exports. Some countries already account for large export volumes, while others stand out because of faster growth. Together, this helps us identify where demand is already strong and where new export opportunities are emerging. Before we go country by country, let's pause and look at the overall picture for spices. Spices rank 22 out of 99 export commodities, which tells us this is a meaningful category but not yet a dominant one. Exports are growing at a healthy pace, and spices are shipped to a large number of countries. However, the overall market share is still limited. This means there's clear demand but also strong competition in global markets. Now the real question is, which countries actually drive India's spices exports? These are the markets that contribute the largest share to total spices exports. Some countries stand out because of their scale, while others are important because of how fast demand is growing. Looking at both value and growth helps us decide which countries exporters should prioritize and which ones to watch next. This map shows the global reach of India's spices exports. Darker regions indicate countries with higher export value. What stands out is that demand for Indian spices is spread across multiple regions, not concentrated in just one or two markets. This confirms that spices have a truly global market, making country selection more important than product selection. Exporters can't focus on every country at once. So the real question becomes, which market makes the most sense to prioritize? Let's start with the UAE and see why it stands out for Indian spices exports. Now let's deep dive into the selected country, the UAE. India's exports to the UAE are sizable, and they have grown significantly compared to last year. The growth rate shows that trade with the UAE is expanding at a healthy pace. At the same time, India exports a wide range of commodities to this market, which tells us that the relationship is both deep and diversified. Together, these indicators show why the UAE stands out as a strong and scalable export market for Indian spices. Now let's look at the products that drive India's exports to the UAE. These are the top commodities ranked by export value. Comparing the current year with last year helps us see which products are gaining momentum and which ones are slowing down. Some commodities show strong growth, while others appear more mature or volatile. This comparison helps us understand where spices stand among other key exports and whether they still have room to grow in this market. This section lists the ports used for spices exports between India and the selected country. On the left, we see the Indian sea and air ports. On the right, we see the ports of the destination country. These are the commonly used export and import gateways for spices trade between the two countries. Let's summarize the key takeaways. Spices exports show steady long-term growth. There's strong global demand across multiple markets. However, overall market share is still limited, which means there's clear opportunity. But success depends on choosing the right country and the right ports. This is how export decisions should be made with data, not guesswork. Thanks for watching. Which export commodity would you like to see next? Let me know in the comments.